speak on this subject.
I'm glad to be here. Okay, shall I start?
Yes, please.
All righty. I'm glad to be here, everybody. Here we go. I'm going to speak for about 50 minutes. Then I'm going to give you a chance to ask some questions. And please feel free to start putting them in the chat. And you do have a link, I think, in your in
the chat.
There's a link in the chat and a link on your dashboard to get to the handouts. So I will mention them as I go along, but you can download them later. So let's start right in. Oh, there you are. This is Carl and Sophie. In some ways, they look like any other family, and they very much wish they could be any other family. However, as they learn very quickly, they're not any other family. Step families can be strong, healthy families. However, step families are fundamentally different from first-time families. The good news is that we now know a lot about what works and what doesn't work to make strong, healthy step families. But the dilemma is that what works is often very different from a first-time family, and this information is not out in the public enough, and it isn't in the hands of therapists and clergy and guidance counselors either. So especially if you are using a first-time family map, it's like driving around Los Angeles with a map of Indianapolis. You're going to get lost, you're going to make wrong turns, and everybody's going to be unhappy and frustrated. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm really glad to be here. So the first thing we need to talk about is how step families are different. Here's Carl with his first wife, Julia. First-time couples like Carl and Julia have time together without kids to make this lovely connection. And they have time to start making some ways of doing things, how we do things. And over time, that gets stronger. And in a first-time couple, kids enter that already established couple relationship. And really important for our story, kids in first-time families enter hardwired for attachment to both parents and vice versa. The next child and the next enter this growing network of connection, also hardwired for attachment in both directions. And if things are going well, over time, the connections in this family get deeper, and their shared sense of how we do things and who we are grows over time. And so here they are, 7 years later, thousands of details about how we do things and what matters to us no longer need discussion. But suppose things don't go well, there's a divorce. In the US, kids usually become part of 2 single-parent families. So this is what it looks like just before Carl starts dating Sophie. And he and Sophie get serious and decide that they're going to make a family. But you can see that as a step parent, Sophie enters as an outsider to all of this, including this relationship and these relationships with Carl's ex-wife, the kid's mother, Julia. Like most step couples, Carl and Sophie are very, very much in love. But even a year later, the deep attachments are here between parents and children on both sides. And so are the agreements about food and mess, and whether grape nuts is a breakfast food or a form of cardboard. That was a real question in my own family. They're not here in the step couple relationship, and they're not here in step parent stepchild relationships. This structure creates 5 different challenges. Kids struggle with losses. Kids in step families struggle with losses and loyalty binds and the pace of change. Insider-outsider positions are intense, especially in the step couple, and step family structure keeps them stuck. Parenting and step parenting are different, and they both matter a lot. And the couple has to build a new family culture, but while respecting and integrating existing cultures. And ex-spouses, another parent, dead or alive, is a permanent part of every step family. Blended family is the language we all use. I use it in my workshop title, but you'll notice I put quotes around it just to remind us all that it describes the wish, but often not the reality for daily living. Step families do come in a lot of forms. In Carl and Sophie's family, only one adult brings kids. In this family, both adults bring kids. You'll notice this is a lesbian couple. In most families headed by LGBTQ couples are at this moment step families. The age of coming out is going down as stigma lifts. And so we will see more first-time families like Tina's. But for now, most LGBTQ folks like Olivia have kids first in a heterosexual cisgender family and then come out. Increasingly, parenting couples are not married, so that term remarried doesn't really apply. And we're seeing a lot more new step families that look like this. The divorce rate in the United States is actually at a 40-year low, except over 50, where it has doubled. We call this gray divorce, and it is often followed by gray recoupling. The fantasy of these folks is the dog's dead, the kid's out of the house, and it's just us. Here's the reality, and I couldn't even fill in Dan's side. I didn't have room. These decades and generations of relationships in these gray recouplers actually intensify many step family challenges. Step couples may be living apart together in a loving, committed relationship. LAT rate goes up 50% in step couples over 50, but it also works well for really vulnerable kids, like a kid on the spectrum who just can't make transitions. And what if the other parent has died? We're seeing more of this with COVID. Same structure. The attachment and the shared ground are in parent-child relationships, including with the missing parent. So all of these forms have in common that at least one parent-child relationship precedes the step couple relationship, and that's what makes these 5 challenges. I like to teach 3 levels of best practices for meeting these challenges. The first is psychoeducation, learning about what's normal and what works and what doesn't. That's what you're doing here today. Straining to be like a first-time family adds a lot of shame and blame to those 5 challenges. Interpersonal skills are really important in step couple. Successful step couples and struggling step couples have the same challenges. Successful step couples meet their challenges with better interpersonal skills. And this 3rd level I call healing old bruises. I explain it with something I call Papernow's bruise theory of feelings. And the way it goes is, if I bump my arm and the flesh is healthy, it hurts. If there's already a bruise there, it hurts a whole different way. And if there's a deep bruise, you only have to touch it and you're going to get flight, fight, freeze, trauma response. Painful, unhealed old bruises can make all of those 5 challenges even more difficult, and healing them can free resources to meet them. So in our short time today, I want to give you an accurate map of these 5 challenges. And we're going to concentrate on that first level of learning what's normal and what works and what doesn't. And I'll just touch on these other 2 levels a little bit. And I'm also along the way going to point out some easy wrong turns for both step family members and therapists. There is a lot of well-meaning, but unfortunately misleading advice out there. And things that might sound right, things that might sound right will often lead you astray. Lots of this is very well-meaning guidance, but following it sometimes is actually destructive for step couple. So here are my 2 books. They are still some of the best sources of good, practical, accurate information. The first is Surviving and Thriving in Step Family Relationships, What Works and What Doesn't. It gives you a really solid sense of what's normal and what the ins and outs of each challenge look like, and a bulleted list of best practices on each of those 3 levels, all based on over 4 decades of research and clinical work. The Step Family Handbook It was written just for the public. Surviving and Thriving was written for both step family members and helping professionals. Step Family Handbook is a breezier style, and as you can see, it starts earlier and goes step by step. For people who do not like to read, both of those books are an audio tape, but also my website has a bunch of videos. Some of them are quite short. There's an hour-long one that a lot of people like, and there are a bunch of interviews and podcasts. So here we go.
Can you say
challenge.
the name of the website? I will type it in the chat.
Stepfamilyrelationships.com, www.stepfamilyrelationships.com. But if you Google my name, it will come up, and there aren't many Papernows in the world. Okay, first challenge. Whoops, what happened to my, let's go back there. There we go. Children in step families struggle with losses and loyalty binds and the pace of change. Some of this information is pretty painful for parents and step parents, but especially parents to take in. But if you can take it in and do some of what works, it can make a really big difference for kids. That's the good news. So losses. For the adults, a loving new relationship is the best thing ever. It's a wonderful gift. But for kids, even for adult children, it often adds to their losses. First, kids come, including adult kids, come to step family with a history of loss and change and divorce. And study after study is finding that when parents recouple, kids lose time and attention. Well, why is this? Well, partly it is that adults are just as besotted when they fall in love as young people are. And they text during dinner, they text while they're doing homework. It really feels awful for kids. And then when the step parent is around, parents in a step family are turned away from their partners, their kids towards their partner. And Zoe says, now she's around all the time. I really miss my dad. It's like I've lost him. Another issue for kids is loyalty binds. For Zoe and Alex, if I care about Sophie, I am disloyal to my mom. If all the adults in both houses are supportive of each other, loyalty binds usually soften over time. However, if anybody's bad-mouthing anybody, loyalty binds can be unbearable for kids. Sometimes nobody is bad-mouthing at all, but one kid is especially distant, often an oldest girl like Zoe. Actually, Sophie complains that Zoe doesn't even look at me, treats me like a piece of furniture. My hunch is some of you have had this experience. What's going on? Often that kid is especially close to the parent in the other household. And sure enough, Zoe's quite close to her mom, not uncommon for oldest daughters in single parent families. And so for Zoe, moving towards Sophie is going to be more difficult than for her brother Alex, who will be available much earlier. But if Julia is having a very hard time, and if she is leaking on Zoe, Zoe may not even be able to look at Sophie without feeling awful. This can be very painful for step parents. You're going to need to be able to reach to your partner for hugs or footsie under the table. What I do want to say, though, is physical contact in step couples is really hard for kids. It intensifies their losses and their loyalty binds and their sense of too much change. So keep it private. Do it, but keep it private. Change. Again, the adults are thrilled. They naturally want to move forward, but it's often at a pace that's much too fast for kids. And for many kids, the adjustment to a step family actually takes longer than the adjustment to divorce. And for kids, bunch of studies, as the amount of change goes up, child well-being goes down. Really important to know that age and gender make a big difference. Step families are easier for kids 8 and under, easier for boys and girls. And we've found this over and over the decades. Harder for girls, hardest for adolescents, and very hardest for 12 and 13-year-old girls. So what works? Adults can really help kids a lot. That's the good news. Very often, a kid who looks manipulative or resistant or depressed is a kid who's actually having a hard time, and we can help. So first of all, kids need their parents. Carve out regular, reliable parent-child time without the step parent. Sometimes just increasing quality one-on-one parent-child time can really make a big difference. Kids will do much better if the adults can slow way down. Now, slowing down is hard when you're in love. The Step Family Handbook has some really good, very concrete ideas about how to do this. Easy wrong turn. Our first time family map says, make your couple primary. If the couple's okay, kids will be okay. This is often true in a first-time family. It is not true in step families. It's very important that the adults nurture the adult step couple relationships. But in step families, it's both and, not either or. Both parent-child relationships and couple relationships need to be nurtured and need one-to-one time. So step parents, do encourage your partners to spend one-to-one time with their kids. Make sure that they're not multitasking, they're really there and present. And you go play with a friend. Take some time outside the household and do make some regular couple time as well. Backing up, I just want to say step parents do need a break. That outsider position can be really exhausting. So do take a long bike ride, maybe take a regular course that gets you out of the house once a week and your partner spends time with their kids during that time. This may feel unfamily-like to you or your partner, but in a step family, it's basic self-care. You need a break so you can come back. So really important for the adults to work to ease loyalty binds. Even if the ex is messing this up, you don't put kids in the middle ever. You don't pass messages through kids. You don't complain. You do complain to your friends and to your barber and to your hairdresser. Don't complain to the kids about your ex or complain about a step parent in the other house. Do complain to your partner, but behind closed doors and very quietly. There is something called loyalty bind talks. They're in handout number 6 when you go to download that. This can sometimes be very helpful. And the way it goes is your mom's place in your heart. This is the core of it. There's more in handout 6. Your mom's place in your heart is permanent, like the mountains, like the sun. I chose Sophie, you didn't. I hope you come to like her over time. But even if you do, it will be a different place in your heart. And a loyalty bind will be more helpful to Alex, whose loyalty bind is fairly soft, than it will be to a loyalty bind talk. Will be more helpful to Alex, whose loyalty bind is fairly soft, than to Zoe, whose loyalty bind is quite tight. And by the way, anybody can do a loyalty bind talk. Grandma, clergy, guidance counselor, step parent, parent. Just a little something on this interpersonal level. There is often a big piece of work for parents on this level. The best medicine for an upset, dysregulated kid is an empathic adult who fully gets it. And the same's true for us. What we want first usually is for the other guy to get it, not to fix it, not to make it go away. But that's easier said than done for parents. And why is that? First, it requires that we step towards our kids' pain. We're not wired for that. It's hard. So when Zoe says, I hate Sophie, what Carl wants to say is, but Sophie's a nice person. That is not comforting to Zoe. What would be comforting to Zoe is, oh, sweetie, something's really tough for you. Let's go sit down. You tell me more about it. This, by the way, is still one of my favorite books. It's in your resource list in handout 7 about doing this kind of parenting with kids. It's very step by step, and I love it. All right, really important challenge for step parents and parents. Insider outsider positions, especially in the step couple, are intense, and the structure keeps them stuck. Again, in step families, the stronger attachments, parent-child, are here and here between parents and their kids. And so are the agreements about how we do things. What's the right amount to pay for a pair of sneakers? What's a loud noise? Those agreements are here and here, not in the step couple or between step parents and step kids. So this is how it plays out. You are a step parent, and you finally get a moment with me, your sweetie, and we are talking, and my kid's on the bus. Zoe's on the bus, and Zoe has made the soccer team or she hasn't made the soccer team. Now Zoe gets off the bus and she bursts in, and who does she want to share her news with? Step parents are really important, but parents are the place kids turn for comfort. She bursts in saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." Now, what do? I'm a good dad. I turn towards my daughter, but in a step family, I've turned my back on you. So how does that feel to you? And I'm sure if you're a step parent, you've experienced it. There's a guy named Stephen Porges who says, he's a neurobiologist, we are wired to expect the people close to us to turn towards us. And when they don't, it's quite upsetting. So step parents, again, are important to step kids. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But parents are the comfort anchor, and that is where kids go first. So in step families, when parents take care for their kids, they have to turn away from parents. So step parents like Sophie are often stuck outsiders, day in and day out. And it's pretty normal for stuck outsiders to feel invisible and rejected, especially if you didn't expect it. Parents like Carl are stuck insiders. If I turn to my daughter, my sweetie's upset. But if I didn't turn to my daughter and I stayed with my sweetie and told her to wait, I'd be really upsetting my kid. And likewise, if I keep the peace with my ex-wife and protect my kids from conflict, I'm going to make my Sophie miserable, and vice versa. So stuck insiders are constantly torn between the people who are important to them, and they often feel anxious and inadequate and defensive, sometimes at the moment that step parents especially need them. In double families, often one of the adults is more of an insider and one is more of an outsider. In this family, both Tina and Olivia have kids, but Lisa, Olivia's daughter, is 6, an age which is easier for most kids in step families, and she's a friendly kid. She engages easily and warmly with Tina. So when these three are together, Lisa's still closer to her mom, but Tina feels seen and engaged, and that she matters. Tommy is a totally different story. Tina's son, Tommy, is an adolescent, much harder age to come into a step family, and he's very shy. Noisy Lisa and her mom are way overwhelming to him. Tommy doesn't actually need a new family at all. He just needs time with his mom. So when Tommy's in the house, Olivia is a very much stuck outsider, almost complete. Important to know that stigma and different levels of outness can add extra layers to this challenge. This is a LGBTQ couple. This is also true for Latinx families sometimes, especially when it was really dangerous for undocumented folks to be outside of their houses. Tina has been out since her teens. Her family's now accepting. Tina's very connected in the gay community. So when Olivia and her daughter need to spend time together, Tina has places to go outside the family where she feels a connected insider. However, Olivia is newly out from a heterosexual marriage. Her parents are not accepting. She's not part of the gay community. So when Tommy needs his mom, Olivia has no other places to turn. So helping Olivia get some comfort from Tina and helping her get connected in the gay community is likely going to be part of helping this couple meet this challenge. Important to know that kids can be stuck insiders and outsider too. Lisa lives with her mom most of the time. She lives in this family. Tommy lives half time with each of his moms. So he enters this house each week as an outsider. Plus, Lisa gets more time with Tommy's mom than Tommy does, and it's hard to watch. So what works to meet this insider-outsider challenge? First, it's really helpful to know that these insider-outsider positions are not because you don't love each other. They're not because you're failing. They are because you're living in a step family. It's the structure that makes it. Not anything wrong with either of you. One key for meeting this challenge, this will sound familiar, is to carve out some regular, reliable one-to-one time for every relationship. Step families do need to spend time together, doing fun things, making new rituals, becoming an us. But every time the whole family is together, that's when all of these challenges actually are most intense. So step couples need time alone when the step parent can be the insider. Parent can turn to the step parent without feeling torn. As we saw, parent-child time alone is key, really important. And step parents and step kids also need time alone together without the parent present. When the parent is present, that stronger parent-child relationship will almost always dominate, and step parents are pushed to the outside again. Just a bit on this level, staying connected across that insider-outsider divide is hard. Step couples need to learn how to pull each other close rather than rub each other raw when one's a stuck outsider and one's a stuck insider. And again, remember, successful step couples and struggling step couples face the same challenge as successful ones have better interpersonal skills. So in handout number 2, when you download it, has a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to share some of them with you. These are a few of my favorites. If you're going to get connected, the first thing to do is take a breath. Calm yourself down before you talk. The guy named John Gottman, who does a lot of research about what he calls master couples and disaster couples, one of the things he says is the most important interpersonal skill is self-regulation, being able to calm yourself down and open your heart. And about opening your heart, soft and tender works a lot better than hard and harsh, almost no matter what the content. I can say to my husband, sweetie, you're an asshole. And it's actually a little bit loving. But hard and harsh comes easy if you're upset. So again, it takes some muscle. Another is negative criticisms come easy, real easy for Sophie to say to Carl, you always leave me out and you did it again. But Olivia says, after a day when Tina has spent the whole day with her son, Tommy, Olivia says, sweetie, that was a hard day. I'd love a hug. And which would be easier to respond to? Another that's not on these slides is iMessages. It is in handout number 2. Labels come easy, real easy for Sophie to say, you know, your kid's rude and you're being a wimpy parent. A lot more effective if you can take a moment and turn that negative criticism into a positive request. So Olivia says, sweetie, I had a hard day. I know you and Tommy needed time together. I'd love some time with you. When can we do it? Maybe tomorrow morning while he's still asleep. Real important, this is a Gottman finding, success master couples watch the ratio of positive to negative. And the ratio that works is 5 positive to 1 negative. Disaster couples in the same interaction, notice what's negative. Master couples in the same interaction, notice what's positive. They don't ignore what's negative, but they also notice what's positive. Repair is really important. Honey, I'm sorry I was sharp. Really important. And when in doubt, these sentence stems can sort of help guide you along. It's hard for me that. I love it if. On this oftentimes people will say to me, but it's the truth. And what I say is the truth without kindness is not communication. It's a weapon. So on this third old bruise level, nobody likes being left out. Nobody likes being torn between people that you care about. The structure is going to make you feel that way. But if you come from a family as a step parent where you were left out all the time, where an older brother or a suffering younger sister got all the attention, that's going to hit an old bruise and it's going to be blindingly painful. And Same if you were the stuck insider in your family, if you were the person who took care of everybody, or if you were criticized a lot, this insider role is going to be a lot more painful. Healing these old bruises will not make the change go away, but it will free resources for you to bring to this hard challenge. Next challenge, key for success. Parenting and step parenting are different. Who knew? Both are important for kids. This very cool parenting chart, it's you've got a handout number 4, goes from warm to cold and from firm to permissive. And this makes 4 parenting styles: authoritative, warm and firm; authoritarian, cold and firm and hard; disengaged, and permissive. We have decades of research that the best outcomes for kids on every measure imaginable come from authoritative parenting. Mental, physical rates of depression are lower, rates of incarceration are lower, academics are better, drug use is lower. Because this challenge is so important, I'm going to start with what works, and then we'll go back a little bit more to what's normal that makes it hard. We have decades now of good research about what works and what doesn't, but it's not intuitive. The first is that step parents, as adults in the family, often expect to step into a disciplinary role, but we now have decades of research. Parents need to retain the disciplinary role. What works for step parents is to focus on connection, not correction. Focus on making relationships. Focus on its low control, high warmth. Concentrating on getting to know your step kid. Finding one-to-one step parent, step kid activities without the parent can be really helpful. Olivia finds out, by the way, that Tommy is a basketball player, and Olivia was the captain of her basketball team in college, and she and Tommy start shooting hoops, and this is an easy way for Tommy to begin to make a connection. Really important. Authoritarian, hard and cold parenting by step parents is almost always toxic. That's this upper right corner. Unfortunately, it is the easiest corner for step parents to fall into. Once kids do feel they have a caring, trusting relationship with their step parents can sometimes move into an authoritative, warm, and moderately firm disciplinary role. But even that too early backfires in step families. Good to know that in many thriving step families, step parents do not have a disciplinary role, especially if kids were older when they start. Easy wrong turn. Parents are often told that they should back up the step parents' discipline. Seems logical, except this pulls step parents prematurely into discipline, and it doesn't work. Successful step couples do work as a team around parenting and discipline. They talk a lot about it. Step parents really do need a voice, and they often have a lot of input. But parents usually need to have final say about their own kids. But here's what makes this challenge so hard. I've now taught all over the world. Step parents everywhere want more limits and boundaries with their step kids. And parents want more love and understanding for their kids. And why is this? Well, parents have that experience in their bodies of adoring and being adored by their kids. Parents share understanding with kids about what's a mess and what's not. Step parents don't have that. Plus, how much more irritating for Sophie if it's Zoe, who doesn't even look at her, who leaves the mess. When this goes badly, parents and step parents are pulled to opposite corners. Step parents get more and more frustrated, and they get more and more cold and hard and demanding. Parents get more and more protective, and they get more permissive, when in fact what kids need is this from parents. I call this the polarization polka, and it's bad for everybody. When this goes well, step parents can often help parents move up to a little more firmness, and parents can often help step parents move over to a little more warmth and understanding. So I call that a collaborative cha-cha, and this is what it looks like. Here's Tina and Olivia. Olivia's daughter, Lisa, has a set of chores including she's to take her own dishes to the kitchen after they have dinner. Tommy doesn't have any chores, and Tommy eats dinner, leaves his dishes on the table, and goes to his room. This is upsetting to Olivia, but Olivia waits for a time when she's calm, and maybe over breakfast, over coffee, she reaches for Tina and says, "Sweetie, I have a request. Can we ask Tommy to pitch in and do the dinner dishes? What do you think?" Tina sighs and says, "Oh, honey, I don't know. He's so overwhelmed. I'm afraid he will just stop talking if we ask any more of him." So Olivia's disappointed. She does not attack. She takes a breath. And a little later, she says softly, "You know what? I still think we can ask more of Tommy. Just a little more of him, don't you think?" Tina sighs. She says, "How about if we just ask him to clear the table?" And Olivia says, "Deal." Notice stepmom has pulled mom up into a little more firmness. Mom has pulled stepmom over to a little more warmth. It's Tina who will tell Tommy about this new thing. Now, here's the good news. Positive step-parent, stepchild relationships matter a lot. They're linked to much better emotional and physical health with kids. And it turns out, this is recent research, that there is a wide range of step-parent roles that work. As long as step-parents are leading with warmth and low control, they can be very emotionally involved. Many very positive step-parent, step-child relationships, step-parent is primarily helping with academics, and some very positive step-parent roles are much more casual. Maybe what some researchers call everyday talk about sports or school, but warm. This whole range of positive step-parent, step-child relationships is linked to higher well-being in kids, both physical and emotional. What doesn't work is negative, cold, distant, authoritarian, and very absent step-parent, step-child relationships. We see higher rates of poor mental and physical health in kids. So how do parents and step-parents talk about this? Again, they do work as a team. They talk a lot about parenting and discipline, but to do this well, given that polarizing challenge, step couples need really good skills. So here's the list. Later on, you might want to download the handout and look and see, what am I doing that I want to keep on doing? What new thing do I want to try? If you're really brave, you can share it with your partner and you can both do this. Here's one I'm going to add. It's called soft, hard, soft. It's pretty concrete. Even some of my most high conflict couples can do this. And this is handout number 7. When you go download them, it's all there. Before saying something hard, look for something soft. It might just be, "I love you." It might be, "We can do this." It might be acknowledging what the kids are doing. It might be empathizing. I know your kids aren't used to picking up. Then say the hard thing, but say it with that soft energy. And if you use those skills in that list, it'll be that much more effective. And add another soft. In the handout, there are some examples. Step-parents don't have to be silent when they're upset with their step-kids, but they do have to express themselves kindly. We need to express ourselves as step-parents in ways that build connection in these fragile relationships, not disconnection. Same list of skills. Soft, hard, soft is really helpful for this one. And sentence stems are helpful too, and really important to take a breath and calm down first. Okay, 4th challenge. New step families do need to build a new family culture, and they have to do it in the presence of and while respecting pre-existing cultures. And let's add kids who've had a lot of change and don't really want to add a whole lot new. So again, in a step family, what's a loud noise? What's the appropriate cost of a haircut are shared, not shared in the step relationships. This family has its first Christmas together. The adults are so excited, and Julia is happily hanging white lights on the Christmas tree, singing Christmas carols. Zoe comes in. She takes one look. Zoe's used to colored Christmas lights on her tree. Zoe bursts into tears. She runs to her room and slams the door. Sophie thinks Zoe has ruined Christmas. Carl gets his daughters upset, but he's frozen in his insider outsider position. Zoe's left alone crying in her room, so she calls her mother, and they both agree that Sophie's a witch. But what does it look like if this goes well? Carl maybe pulls Sophie into the pantry. Remember, not physical contact, not in front of kids. He gives her a hug and says, "Oh, sweetie, I'll be back." He goes to his daughter, and Zoe is wailing. "Oh, colored lights, how could she hang white lights? That's ridiculous." And Carl does not say, "Oh, not such a big deal, honey." He puts his arm around his girl. He takes a breath because it's hard to feel your kid in pain. And he says, "Oh, sweetie, I know. One too many changes. Oh, my goodness, so many changes." And if this goes well, they all calm down, and maybe later they all sit around with a cup of cocoa and they tell each other stories about Christmases past, what their trees look like, what they did and didn't do for Christmas. These stories have to be shared purposefully in step parents and step families. It's part of how you make an us. So what works to build a new step family culture? First, we got to change the metaphor. Becoming step family is a lot less like blending strawberries and blueberries and making a smoothie. It's a lot more like bring together a group of Japanese and a group of Italians and say, live together. It's going to take time. It's going to take lots of time. And they're going to be a lot of what I call learning by goofing. That's what happened in Carl and Sophie's family. It was learning by goofy. And it's not a sign of failure. It's just a sign that we're learning about each other. We all need to take a great big breath and try to be kind to each other and learn from it. Really important to remember, as the rate of change goes up, kid well-being goes down. Taking new things a step at a time saves 9. In double families, this may mean 2 sets of rules for a while. So Tommy's allowed to drink Coke with his dinner, and Lisa's pissed about this, but Olivia wants her daughter to drink milk. So Lisa says to her mom, "That's not fair." And Olivia says, "I know, sweetie, these differences are tough. Where Tommy comes from, they drink Coke with dinner. I want you to drink milk with dinner. When you're old enough to decide for yourself, you can decide which is right. Now, I want you to drink your milk. You can have a little Coke for dessert if it's lunch, not if it's dinner. I don't want you to be up all night." Very easy wrong turn. Step couples and double families are often advised to make a whole list of new family rules. It sounds kind of logical, but it's too much change too fast for kids. It's a little like trying to solve the differences between Japanese and Italians by having everybody eat pasta with chopsticks. It's going to make a lot more misery than it is unity. So I suggest beginning by with 2 or 3 maybe important shared rules and focus on civility and safety for everybody. This, by the way, is not the time to let kids work it out. All right. 5th challenge, last but not least, another parent outside the family, dead or alive, is a permanent part of all step families. We do see slightly poorer outcomes for kids after divorce. However, it turns out it's not divorce that makes the difference. It's conflict and poorer parenting. Kids with divorced, low conflict family parents are doing better than kids with high conflict, never divorced parents. Even moderate tension, doesn't have to be guns and knives, in parental relationships lowers kids' attentional focus. It compromises their academics, and it compromises immune systems. These things really matter. So what works? Really important. Don't put kids in the middle. Complain to your friends, not to your kids. Complain to your partner, but quietly behind closed doors. Rules do not have to, oh, I've already said that. Oh, yes, no, let's say this one. Rules don't have to be the same between households, but the adults do need to be respectful. So, whoops, wrong family. There we go. Tommy says, Mama, that's his mom in the other household, lets me watch TV on school nights, and you don't. And Tina says, yep, in your mama's house, you can watch TV on school nights. In this house, we watch on weekends. And when you're grown up, you can decide which is better. again, calm, neutral, factual, not saying, well, she's wrong and I'm right. Navigating different value systems between homes can be really tough, and it really pulls for your best skills, not your worst. I have a colleague with a 10-year-old stepdaughter from the South, and the daughter came home from her mom's house saying, gays are abomination. My colleague said lovingly and calmly, that's what one side of your family believes. There are lots of different opinions about these things and lots of different beliefs. Here's what we believe. What we believe is that gay and lesbian and transgender folks, like our friends Ellen, Jane, and Tom and Gary, they're people just like us. We want you to have your own opinions and beliefs, but we all agree, both your houses agree, that you have to treat people the way you want to be treated. What if a parent has died? Again, we're seeing more of this with COVID. And in my experience, it can often make a harder adjustment for kids that can make them even less welcoming of step-parents. And I think that's partly because step-parents expect and are expected by the other partner to replace the missing parent. But kids don't want a replacement. They need lots of support to grieve their missing parent, and they need help honoring and remembering the missing parent. So adults, when a parent has died, need to hold that missing parent as part of the family. And there are some specific ideas for how to do this in both books. This is a good book. There is a lot of junk out there, but this is one of the few good trade books, Diane Fromm's book, Step Parenting the Grieving Child, Cultivating Past and Present Connections with Kids Who've Lost a Parent. The title says it all. Back to live ex-spouses. A lot of us, we have to use our best skills in situations, even the ones that pull for the worst. And these are some really good books. Bill Eddy's book, Biff, is real short, real concrete and helpful. And I love Whitman's book. These two books are good for high conflict co-parenting. And these two books are good for how to do it right. In parenting, again, as in step parenting, step parents want more limits with the ex, and step parent, back up. Step parents want more limits with the ex. Parents need to keep the peace. And how do you listen to each other? And the bottom line is, do you care about the kids more than you hate the ex? Sometimes, by the way, step parents can be a real resource. If you have a real triggered partner and you are the more grounded person, sometimes a step parent can be the one who does good work with the ex-spouse. So I want to end by looking at what it looks like when step families meet their challenges. So here are Sophie and Carl at the beginning. They're a new step family. They're straining to blend. The strong attachments and shared understandings are in the first-time family. Alex is somewhat available to Sophie. Zoe's loyalty bind is keeping her away from Sophie. And Sophie's arrival on the scene has upped the tension between Carl and Julia. Sharing your kids with an adult you did not choose, that you have no ability to supervise, can be awfully hard for ex-spouses. The one thing they've done right is Carl has managed the discipline, but because Sophie and Carl have such lousy interpersonal skills, they at this point having a really tough time. So here they are 7 years down the road. They've gotten some good help and worked hard. Attachment in the adult step couple is now strong, and they now have a sense of we-ness between them and an increasing sense of we-ness in the family. Typical in this healthy step family, Carl is closer to his kids than Sophie is. There's a woman named Mavis Hetherington who calls this ownness. The relationship between Sophie and her stepson Alex is strong and getting stronger. With some coaching, Carl and Julia have reassured, Carl and Sophie have reassured Julia, and the tension has lowered considerably, and they now have a fairly cooperative relationship. This has loosened some of Zoe's loyalty bind, and she now has a fairly decent relationship with Sophie, friendly, in that casually positive. Sophie has moved slowly into authoritative parenting with Alex. Carl is still the go-to parent for discipline with Zoe. So very different from this first-time family, healthy, thriving step family. So again, becoming a step family is a process, not an event. That's the bottom line. Here are my books again, and my website. The handouts, the link is on the dashboard. I don't take new clients at all, guys, but I will try to find you somebody. And I wish you all the best. Okay. Whoops.
Any questions? You could put your hand up in the reactions. Or just unmute.
Congratulations. Good job.
What
That
was
was-
helpful? I like to hear, if you don't have questions, I'd love to hear what stuck, like what was helpful. And put in the chat or say it, put up your hand and say it out loud and unmute yourself.
I love the ratio of the 5 to 1.
Uh-huh.
More of the positive versus the negative. We tend to forget, get hooked. Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good reminder, isn't it? And I actually make my clients go home and count.
Yeah, it's actually very
Because
good.
the negative comes really fast and easy when you're upset. Go home and count.
I love all the stories you told about the different couples. That really brought it to life.
Oh, good. I had so many more that I had to cut out because we didn't have time. But yes, yeah. Mhm.
I
And there are
wanted
lots more in Surviving and Thriving, and somewhere also in Step Family Handbook. Lots of stories.
I just want to say you all that Patricia, Dr. Papernow has just given you a basic little mini course there that is not unlike the one you taught back last year, I think it was, right?
Yeah, then I had a whole day.
You had a whole day, I know. So you tried to get a lot in there in an hour. It's an amazing amount of information, so valuable. And again, for those of you who came on late, if you're wondering what is this little thing in the corner here that Rhea and I have, it's so that people can upgrade either during or after. You can upgrade afterwards for weeks and weeks to get all the recordings. It's a way of holding on to these teachings forever. And just one of them is certainly worth the price, but I think it's a great opportunity. And thank you so much for sharing all of these materials and handouts with us as well.
Yeah, I like to give people a lot because it's such important information, makes such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're one of the speaker and I got so much out of this. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this summit. Thank you so much, Dr. Pepperman.
Oh, glad to
Papernow.
have you here.
Thank you.
We're both step parents as well. Oh, well, she's in a step family. I'm a step parent. So just so
I've
much
been
value.
both. And it's very interesting in that this is a story I didn't have time to tell. I was a step parent in my first marriage. I'm the insider in my family of origin. I'm the oldest. I'm the only girl. My parents were a mess and they sort of relied on me. I was the one who was connected to everybody. I knew I could get inside. So when my first marriage, I had 2 stepdaughters. They were 5 and 9. And I could sit in the back seat when my husband went to pick him up. And I could say, go to McDonald's. No anxiety. Well, I had a child, and when she was 3, I left my husband, and I met my second husband 10 years later. And now I'm the insider. I was so much more anxious. Plus, I have ADD, and I was always making mistakes. I'd be taking my daughter out to swim at the lake. Oh, I have a date with my husband tonight. The insider position was much more anxious for me. I actually had to get my butt back into therapy in order to be able to manage it.
Well, we appreciate that you could join us. And our next speaker is on the scene. Hello, Denise. She's going to talk about some parenting challenges and how to overcome them. But we actually have a few minutes. So if there was anything else, Dr. Papernow, that you wanted to share. 3 more minutes or more questions.
I have
Otherwise,
a
we
million other things, but
million other things. Do you want to hold up that book? I wasn't sure. I missed the title of it. You mentioned a book, children's book, was it?
the book for parents,
Oh, the book for
How to
parents.
Listen So Your Kids Will Talk and Talk So Your Kids Will Listen. That's in handout number 7 is a whole list of resources. And I still think it's the best primer. And there are some other really good stuff about parenting, but it's it has cartoons and then you
Mhm.
practice. And the first half is really about the empathic, responsive part of parenting that's so important in step families. And the second one is about limit setting,
I love that.
positive limit setting, authoritative parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on audio if you don't like to read.